So here's a little funny thing that happened. Guy brought in a Mavic wheel. It's a SCS, it's a Sriyum SL. It's an older version, but it's still nice, lightweight. The axle got jammed. The end of the axles actually got really thinned out on the ends. So in the dropouts, they were basically spinning and getting worn down, like it was in a machine on a spindle or some type of mandrel, something like that. So he found an extra hub somewhere, purchased that. It's used. I'm going to take the internals out and put it back into this wheel over here, because the hub is fine. I already took it out, but it was very interesting. We got the seal cartridge on this side, sealed cartridge bearing on this side. This one's actually running a little bit rough. Good to put a finger on it. Who knows if that was dealt with whatever damage that caused the damage to this guy over here. But with the use of the vise and a 5mm tool, I was able to stick it back into the spindle over here, which is a very soft metal. So it was already rounded out. It wasn't grabbing very well. So squeezing with the tool and putting the vise right on the end of the spindle or the axle, squeezing the axle to the tool, got a nice tight grip. I was able to come on the top side and use my spanner tool and stick it right in here. We got the 2, 4, 6 holes. That worked out perfectly. So this end right here, you can see it's all shiny, got basically worn down quite a bit. Here's the original right next to it. So that width right there, even the other side looks really good too, but that one's really worn out. And then flipping it over, of course it's a little crushed now because it's a very soft metal. Had to put it into the vise, had to sacrifice that to get that out. But usually it's 2 5mm on both sides. Crack that loose. You can take that axle out, get to your sealed cartridge bearings. So if you can imagine this, back in the hub, before I took it out of the wheel, I was able to put it on the tool. Actually lowered it down, so I wanted to pinch not only the tool, but I wanted to pinch the end of the axle. So I was squeezing the axle onto the tool, getting a real tight bite. Then I was able to come with the spanner on the other side of the hub, and then just break that loose. And I think I even spun the wheel, and I think that cracked everything loose, and then the whole thing just spun off on this side. So this piece right here, that has the 6 holes. I just used my spanner. I used the Mavic plastic one. I broke those right away, the little plastic tips, but this unscrewed. Of course you have the end caps to take off first. I already took them off this one, but end caps are right here. Those just press on. Very similar to today's through axles for your mountain bikes or anything that has a 12mm or a 15mm. The end caps can create the space or take away space. You can get them thinner or thicker. Either if they're not easy enough, you're just pulling them off, you can pull them off with a pair of pliers, or if you're very, very gentle, stick them in the vise, very gentle pressure. So you're sticking it in this way, and then just pull up on your hub and you'll break these free. There's just a little rubber O-ring inside these guys that meshes or matches to a little divot here, so that O-ring falls inside there. That's what you're feeling. That rubber O-ring gives you the resistance, so you're just fighting that rubber O-ring. So you just need to overpower it a little bit. Looks like a line, but it's an indentation right there. And then this is your end cap here. Looking inside there, it's hard to see, going to be hard to see on here, but right inside there, there's a rubber O-ring that insets inside your end cap, and it slides on, falls right there. And then you have that just a few millimeters exposed that are going to be sitting in your dropout. So once we pull the axle out of your Mavic, here's a seal cartridge bearing. It's sitting down and flush. Give it a spin, the internal a spin. You can hear that sounds really rough. So if we were to replace this, you just have the appropriate bearing. There's some writing on top, or you can measure the exterior and interior, inner diameter, outer diameter. Find that direct size anywhere online. It's probably going to be okay for any application. And then just take it out, push that back in. If we flip this over, here's the other side over here. I'm giving that one a spin. That one's really quiet. So it actually feels pretty good. So you can always go back at a later time and replace this guy. So being a front hub, there's no real left and right specific with this. So now we're just going to take the axle out of this one. We got this side with the 6 holes. I'll use a spanner tool on this side, 5mm over on this side. The side over here with the 5 holes or 6 holes, You cannot put a 5mm in there. You can do this by hand, but since I'm doing video, and then I'll show you guys a little tip with this vise, holding my 5mm tool, you're gonna install the side that can take the 5mm tool, match that up, boom, and then you can come on this side and use your spanner tool. This is a SPA-2. This is the only one I have in the shop. It seems to be working for almost everything. So we can start unscrewing this. It's lefty-loosey counterclockwise. And this is basically your adjustment. If your hub was loose, the axle was moving around too much, you would tighten this one or loosen this one. And that guy's about ready to come off. And again, I don't believe this is left and right specific. So this comes off. It is top and bottom specific. And then you can see the whole hub body can come off as well. Boom. You can see inside there. And then we got this guy. And now we have to dislodge our axle from this side of the hub. It's pretty cool. So looks like this pops on and off, so you can maybe do a little more maintenance to it. Another O-ring here down at the base. Probably just kind of squeezes on, forms this little dust seal over here. Probably the same thing over here, and see if this one comes off. Yeah, so that one comes apart too. You know, good old Mavic giving you some options to take apart and clean. So probably just have to knock this axle right out, kind of shock it loose. So I haven't taken one of these apart before, but axle needs to shoot up this way. So I'm gonna go ahead and smack it right here. Hopefully not too hard. Yep, oh, actually broke that part free. So I'm gonna hang on to this top, hit the bottom again. Oh, let's get that out of the way then. It's pretty cool. Probably better access to get to that bearing. I like it. Soft aluminum, so maybe you're gonna put something soft here if you're gonna be smacking it several times. Okay, let's take it all apart. You just need to break this free from this outer ring right here. There it goes. Yeah, so not a whole lot of force needed. Boom. So now we can go ahead and use this axle, stick it in the other one. So that's the outer, we can call this the flange of the hub. Spokes go through this hole. And we got the bearing. So definitely make that easy to pop that bearing out. Looks like the bearing, looks like it can come out either side. It is sitting flush. So when you get it back in there, you're gonna be sitting flush on the inside. So, ooh, I don't like that bearing, but we'll get back to that. If you did have to take this out, either you can knock it out going from the other side, shooting through, old style screwdriver or punch, gently tapping all the way around till it comes out, or you have some type of small bearing puller you can use as well. But let's see here. So as long as this outer diameter is the same size roughly as the other side, or exactly the same size, then I would imagine this can go in either direction. But we're going to pay attention if we get any hang-ups. Maybe we just flip it over. So just push that in. So it looks good there. I'm going to take it out and see what it looks like on the other side. Looks the same. Give it a spin. Seems to spin okay. I can feel that rough bearing. It's pretty dry for the most part on the inside. Maybe there's a little bit of lube on the outer threads. The little grease I see, it might just be from spitting out from the existing bearing, but that slides in this way. So this side has the 5mm. Flip this over. I'm going to hold this other side, my left hand, and then we're going to go ahead and use our adjusting, we'll call this the adjusting nut or adjusting cone nut, although it's not shaped like a cone, but it does have the 6 holes in there, and we're tightening clockwise. And if the whole axle wants to spin like it is right now, I'm going to go ahead and use a 5mm tool, stick that in there. So right now it's loose. I got a little side-to-side movement. So we want to get rid of that, but we don't want it so tight that it's going to not allow the wheel to spin nice and freely. It's getting a little tough for the fingers, so we're going to put the spanner back in there and just tighten this guy up. I'm going very gently. Just want to make contact, and then we'll give it a feel. So that was my my warning that I made contact. Now I'm just spinning the axle. Seems to spin pretty good. And then you can push side to side, see if there's any side to side movement. Not really. Then you can put it up against the wall and do this, see if there's any looseness here. Just fingertips. You're really not going to see this on the film, but just a little knock there. So I'm going to go just a little tighter. And you know what, with this one, you can probably go pretty darn tight without it slowing down the bearings. Let's just give it a shot. So that's not super tight, but it's definitely snug. Let's see. Yep, it locked it up. Axle is not spinning. Did not like that. So we're going to loosen it up. So it is sensitive. So we are just wanting to make contact, get rid of any side-to-side play, and then make sure that you're spinning okay. Like I said, I am feeling that little rough bearing. Just a little crunch here, a little crunch there. Overall pretty good. And you're pretty much done. There's nothing else to lock this adjuster into place. That's just the way they designed it. It's probably going to technically stay into place once you put everything back together, close your quick release, it squeezes everything tight, and then it's not going to move. And then these are the end caps. There's a wider end. It's always going to be sticking outward. The narrow end is going to go on first. Boom. And then we just have that little bit of material showing. That's just enough to disappear inside your dropout. That's going to be inside your fork. So your fork material should be twice as wide as this. Pretty scary because a little bit of metal is sitting just on the inside, or only half of the metal. Designed like that on purpose, but that's a whole lot of weight resting on just a couple millimeters of your dropout. And then the other side. And again, we have the wide end is towards the outside. Just push that on, boom, locked into place. And yeah, it's pretty tough. Can't really get that off with my fingers. And I think we're all done. We got spinach. We know we have a little bit of a rough bearing, but this wheel can go back on the bike and it's back in business.